The sun was sinking low over the wide alien forest when Tom set down his pack. The air smelled sharp, like wet stone after rain, and the trees were so tall that their tops vanished into the evening clouds. He had walked for hours across broken ground and tangled roots, his boots covered in dust and leaf fragments. Now he was tired, and the light was fading. Mira walked ahead of him without a sign of weariness. Her steps were light and quick, like she knew every stone on the ground before her foot touched it. She was not human, and Tom never forgot it. Her skin was smooth but carried a faint scale pattern, like the surface of polished stone. Her eyes glowed with a golden shine even in the shadow. When she turned and looked at him, Tom always felt like she was carrying the forest inside her gaze. "Here's a good place," Mira said. Stopping by a ring of low rocks, she dropped her small pack and stretched her arms. "We will make camp before the night wakes the hunters." Tom followed her lead, though his hands were already sore from the long journey. He placed his bag down and pulled out the folded tent cloth. Mira did not need one. She preferred to sleep near the fire with only a blanket. Tom often thought it strange, but Mira had grown up in this world, and comfort meant something different to her. As the fire pit came together, Tom kept glancing at the dark forest edge. The trees stood close like soldiers, and the shadows between them seemed to breathe. Somewhere far off, a long cry echoed, too deep and drawn out to be any bird he knew. Tom's shoulders tightened, and he worked faster on the camp. Mira noticed his unease. She picked up a dry branch and snapped it in half, smiling in her calm way. "Do not fear the cry," she said. "It is far away. We are safe here." Tom gave a weak laugh. "Safe? That's not how it sounds." Mira knelt beside the fire pit and struck sparks from a stone. Soon a small flame caught, and light pushed the shadows back. Her face glowed in the firelight, golden eyes steady and fearless. "You must learn the voices of the wild zone," she said. "The cry tells me that the creature has eaten. It is warning others to stay away. Tonight it will not come close." Tom wanted to believe her, but the wild zone was nothing like Earth. Every sound felt dangerous. Every tree felt like it was hiding a secret. Still, Mira spoke with such certainty that his heart calmed a little. After the fire grew strong, Tom cooked a small pot of dried meat and roots. Mira showed him how to slice a plant she had gathered earlier. Its leaves looked like green glass, and when boiled, they made the stew taste rich and sweet. Tom found himself relaxing as the warm smell filled the air. When the food was ready, they sat together on the flat rocks. Mira ate quietly, her sharp teeth clicking softly as she chewed. Tom tried not to stare, though he was always reminded that she came from a world far different than his own. Yet her laughter, her way of explaining things, and the ease in her company made him feel less alone in this strange land. Night fell fully. The stars above were sharp and bright, more than Tom had ever seen on Earth. A thin blue moon rose, followed by a smaller red one, both painting the forest with faint light. The sounds of insects and distant calls grew louder. Tom sat closer to the fire, pulling his jacket tight. "How far do you think we are from the old station?" he asked. Mira leaned back, looking at the sky. "2 days if we walk with speed, 3 if the river is high." Tom nodded. The old station was their goal, a forgotten outpost left by human explorers decades ago. Rumors said it still carried power and data. For Tom, it meant history, maps, and perhaps even clues of how humans first touched this world. For Mira, it was just another part of the forest, but she had agreed to guide him there. Suddenly, a crack echoed from the trees. Tom froze. His hand went to the metal tool he kept at his belt, something halfway between a knife and a short spear. Mira did not move. She only tilted her head, listening. The crack came again, followed by the sound of something heavy shifting. In the undergrowth, Tom's throat tightened. He imagined large eyes staring from the dark. His fire seemed too small, too weak against whatever moved outside the ring of trees. Mira finally spoke, her voice calm. "It passes by. Not a threat yet." "How do you know?" Tom whispered. "Because it breathes too heavy." She answered, "It is tired, not hungry. Tonight, It will search for water, not prey. Tom wanted to trust her, but his hand stayed tight on his weapon. Minutes dragged by. The sound slowly faded, replaced again by insects and distant cries. The forest seemed to settle when Tom finally exhaled. Mira smiled at him. "You must learn to listen," she said. "Fear makes your ears close. The wild zone is not only danger. It speaks, if you pay attention." Tom looked at her with a mix of frustration and admiration. "Easy for you. You grew up here. For me, it is all teeth in the dark." Mira chuckled softly. "And yet you follow me into it. That is brave." Her words surprised him. He had never thought of himself as brave. He was only trying to survive, to reach the outpost, to learn more about this strange place. But maybe, he thought, courage was not about feeling safe. Maybe it was about walking into fear anyway. As the fire burned low, Tom stretched out in his tent, still listening to the night. Mira lay on her blanket close to the fire, her golden eyes half closed, always alert. Tom envied her calm, but also found comfort in it. Sleep came slowly. The wild zone never grew silent. Every crack, every cry, every flutter of wings made Tom open his eyes again. Yet each time, Mira's steady breathing reminded him he was not alone. Before he drifted off, at last, he heard another distant cry, lower and closer than before. His heart thumped hard, but he told himself Mira would know what it meant. He whispered to himself. "Safe," she said. "Safe." The forest answered with the sound of unseen life moving in the dark, and the night carried on around their small circle of firelight. The sun rose pale and cold through the forest canopy. Mist curled between the trees, carrying the smell of wet soil. Tom stirred in his tent, his back sore from the hard ground. He heard the steady crackle of the fire, which Mira must have kept alive through the night. When he crawled out, he found her already awake, crouched near the edge of the camp, studying the ground. "What is it?" Tom asked, rubbing his tired eyes. Mira pointed to the soil just beyond the ring of rocks. "Tracks," she said. Tom stepped closer. At first, he saw nothing, only damp earth and fallen leaves. Then he noticed deep impressions in the ground, for long marks spread like fingers. With a wide pad behind them, the prints were bigger than his hand. His stomach turned. "That's not from anything small." Mira nodded calmly. "A hunter passed near in the night. It circled the camp once and then left." Tom knelt to look closer. "Why didn't it attack?" "Because it is curious," Mira replied. She ran her hand along the print, her golden eyes narrowing as if reading a message in the dirt. "This one tests. It waits to see if we are weak." Tom felt the back of his neck prickle. The idea of something circling while he slept made him uneasy. He glanced into the trees, half expecting glowing eyes to stare back. "We should move on, break camp and head toward the river." Mira shook her head. "If we move now, it follows us. The wild zone is its home. Better we stay one more night here. We make fire stronger. We make signals. We show we are not easy prey." Tom frowned. "You want to stay, after seeing this?" "Yes," Mira said simply. "Running shows fear. Fear makes us smaller." Tom wanted to argue, but he had learned not to dismiss her judgment. She read the land like he read a book. With a heavy breath, he nodded. "Fine, but let's be ready." They spent the morning gathering wood and shaping simple defenses. Mira showed Tom how to sharpen branches into stakes, planting them in a ring beyond the fire. She also tied small strings between trees, hanging stones on them. When the wind moved the stones, they rattled together. "This way," she explained, "we hear what steps in." Tom admired her skill. She worked with quiet focus, as if she had done this many times before. He tried to keep up, though sweat soaked his shirt under the rising sun. By midday, the camp looked more secure. The fire pit had been built larger, with extra piles of wood ready to burn bright through the night. The rattling strings hung like spider webs round the clearing. Stakes pointed outward like teeth. They ate a simple meal of roots and dried meat. Tom chewed slowly, still watching the forest edge. Mira, however, looked relaxed, sitting cross-legged by the fire. "You are still uneasy," she said, studying his face. "Of course I am." Tom answered. Something big enough to make those. Prince is out there. Mira tilted her head. It has always been out there. The wild zone is full of hunters. This is nothing new. That doesn't make it easier, Tom muttered. She gave a small laugh, not mocking but warm. You think too much of teeth. You must also think of balance. The predator does not waste its strength unless it must. If we show we are strong, it looks for easier prey. Tom shook his head, though part of him wanted to believe her. On Earth, when you see tracks like that, it means danger. You move fast and get out. This is not Earth. Mira said gently, Here, the forest. Watch as how you stand. The day passed with uneasy calm. Birds with long tails glided between branches. Insects buzzed around the fire, only to vanish when Mira scattered herbs on the flames that released a sharp smoke. Tom tried to rest, but his mind kept returning to the prints in the dirt. By evening, the mist returned. The forest grew darker, colors fading into gray and black. Tom checked the stakes again, making sure they stood firm. Mira fed the fire until it blazed tall, casting light far into the trees. Tonight, she said. We listen. The hours dragged. Tom sat close to the fire, spear across his knees. Mira sat with her back straight, eyes never closing. The forest spoke in rustles and distant cries. Then, sometime after midnight, the first rattle came. A stone clinked against another on the far side of the camp. Tom's head snapped toward the sound. The firelight barely reached that far. Shadows shifted between the trees. Mira raised her hand calmly. It comes. Tom gripped his spear tighter. His heart hammered. He thought of the deep prints, the wide claws. He imagined huge jaws breaking through the dark. The rattling grew, louder as something brushed the strings. Branches cracked under heavy weight. Tom could hear the slow, steady breath of a creature moving closer. He rose to his feet, pointing the spear toward the shadows. The fire hissed as Mira tossed fresh wood into it, flames leaping higher. Then Tom saw it. A shape at the edge of the trees, larger than a man, low and broad. Its eyes glimmered faintly, reflecting firelight. For a long moment, it stood still, watching. Tom's pulse raced. He wanted to shout, to throw something, to drive it away. But Mira remained seated. She did not flinch, did not reach for a weapon. She simply watched the shape with calm eyes. Why are you not moving? Tom whispered sharply. Because it is not yet choosing, Mira replied. Do not rush it. The creature stepped forward once, claws clicking on stone. Its body caught more of the firelight. Thick scales ran along its limbs. Its head was long, with jaws built for tearing. Tom nearly raised his spear to throw, but Mira's voice stopped him. Not yet. The predator gave a low growl, deep enough that the ground seemed to carry it. Tom's skin went cold. The sound was not hunger. It was testing, for what felt like endless minutes. Predator and camp faced each other. The fire crackled. The strings rattled faintly in the wind. Mira's golden eyes did not waver. At last, the creature turned. Slowly, it backed into the shadows again, vanishing between the trees. The sound of heavy steps faded, leaving only the song of insects and the pop of firewood. Tom exhaled hard, sweat running down his face. It was right there. Why didn't we fight? Because it only wanted to know, Mira answered softly. Now it knows. Knows what? That we are not afraid. Tom shook his head, dropping back onto the rock beside the fire. He was not sure if her words made him feel braver or more terrified. The predator was still out there. It had tested them once. It could return. But when he glanced at Mira, she was smiling faintly. Her calm stronger than any weapon. For the first time, Tom wondered if laughter and calm might be sharper than claws. The fire burned high, holding back the dark, while the forest waited for what the next night would bring. The night grew colder as the fire burned low. Tom sat with his back against a rock, spear across his knees, listening to every sound beyond the circle of light. He had not slept. His eyes burned with exhaustion, but fear kept them open. Mira was different. She sat calmly with her legs folded, her golden eyes reflecting the fire. Her face showed no fear, only a quiet patience that unsettled Tom as much as it comforted him. Hours passed. Then, Just as Tom thought the forest was beginning to quiet, he heard it again. A low crack in the brush, heavy breathing carried on the night air. The rattling stones on the string traps trembled. Tom straightened. It's back. He whispered. Mira nodded slowly. Yes, tonight it will decide. Tom's hand tightened on his spear. His heart pounded against his ribs. He stared into the dark, and soon he saw movement. A massive shape pushed through the trees. The firelight reached it little by little until the creature stepped into full view. It was larger than Tom had imagined. Its body was covered in thick scales that glistened under the fire. Its shoulders were broad, its arms long with claws that scraped the dirt. Its head was wedge-shaped with a wide mouth of sharp teeth. Its eyes glowed faintly yellow, fixed on the campfire and the two figures sitting beside it. Tom rose to his feet, weapon raised. He could barely keep his voice steady. Mira, get back. It's coming closer. But Mira did not move. She looked at the predator with a calm expression, and then, to Tom's complete shock, she laughed. The sound was clear and soft, as if she was welcoming an old friend instead of facing danger. Look at it, she said. It came to us instead of waiting. That is respect. Respect, Mira. That thing has teeth bigger than my hand. Instead of answering his panic, Mira leaned slightly forward, her golden eyes meeting the predator's glowing stare. Then she spoke in her light, teasing tone. Are you here for breakfast? Tom blinked at her in disbelief. His mouth went dry. He expected the predator to lunge, to tear across the fire in one leap. But instead, the creature tilted its head, its wide jaws opened slightly. Not an attack, but in what looked almost like confusion. The moment stretched. Tom felt every muscle in his body ready to snap. The predator huffed, a deep sound that sent dust rolling across the ground. Then, slowly, it stepped closer. The firelight revealed the full strength of its body. Its back was lined with bony ridges. Its claws dug trenches in the dirt. Its gaze shifted from Tom's spear to Mira's calm figure. Tom shouted again, his fear breaking, "Stay back." He thrust the spear forward in warning, though he did not strike. The predator's eyes flicked toward him, but Mira raised her hand sharply. Stop, she said. Do not show fear and do not challenge. Let it speak. Speak, Mira. It doesn't talk, it eats. But Mira ignored his protests. She reached behind her and picked up a strip of dry meat from their pack. With smooth motion, she tossed it toward the creature. The meat landed in the dirt just before its claws. The predator sniffed the food. For a long second, it stood perfectly still. Then it bent its head, picked up the meat, and swallowed it whole. Tom's eyes widened. It ate it. Mira smiled faintly. Yes, it is curious. It wants to know if we offer fear or friendship. Tom was too stunned to reply. The predator gave another deep huff, then circled the camp slowly. It did not charge. It did not attack. It moved like a shadow, its eyes never leaving the fire and the two figures within it. Every time it stepped closer, Tom's pulse jumped, but Mira's calm presence held him still. She even leaned back slightly, resting her arms on her knees as though this was no more dangerous than a wandering animal. After several long minutes, the predator stopped on the far side of the fire. It sat down on its haunches, its claws digging into the ground, and stared. The fire crackled between them. Tom could barely breathe. Why is it just sitting there? Because it is learning, Mira said softly. It has seen humans before. It knows claws and spears. But it has not seen laughter and food. It does not understand us yet. Tom shook his head. His legs trembled. But he forced himself to stay standing, spear still ready. This is madness. You're joking with it. Offering it food. What if it decides we are the food? Mira turned her eyes toward him. Then it would not wait. It would not test. It would strike. But it is not. Her certainty was a strange comfort. Though Tom's heart refused to settle, he sat slowly, back on the rock, unable to hold his weight anymore. The predator kept its place, its gaze moving from Mira to him, then back again. Hours passed like this. The fire burned lower, and the cold night deepened. Still, the predator did not leave. Mira finally leaned sideways, whispering so softly that Tom almost missed it. It is not only beast. There is thought in its eyes. Tom glanced again and, for the first time, saw what she meant. The creature's stare was sharp, not mindless. It studied them with focus. Almost like a person might. The realization chilled him in a different way, but it also filled him with awe. The night ended with the predator still there. As the first light of dawn touched the trees, it rose to its full height. It gave one last low growl that shook the air, then turned and disappeared into the forest. Tom sat frozen, his body stiff from tension. He rubbed his face with both hands. I can't believe we survived that. I thought it would tear us apart. Mira stood, brushing dust from her hands, her golden eyes glowing in the pale morning light. It did not tear us apart because we did not show weakness. We laughed instead. That is stronger than claws. Tom stared at her, still stunned. You laughed. I nearly fainted. She smiled. One day you will laugh too. Tom shook his head, though he could not help the faint smile tugging at his lips. He did not know if Mira's way would always work, but last night had shown him something strange and powerful in the wild zone. Courage was not just about weapons. Sometimes it was about standing still when everything inside screamed to run. The campfire hissed as Mira threw more wood on it. The smoke curled into the morning sky. Tom sat silently, staring into the forest, wondering if the predator would return tonight. He suspected it would, and this time he was no longer sure if that thought filled him with fear or something else. The forest was quiet after the predator's visit, but Tom could not find peace. All through the morning he kept glancing toward the trees, expecting the giant beast to appear again. His hand shook when he packed his gear, though he tried to hide it. Mira noticed. She always noticed. It did not harm us, she said calmly while grinding herbs into powder. You can breathe easy. Breathe easy. Tom gave a dry laugh. It sat 10 steps away from us like a nightmare waiting to wake up. That is not what I call easy. Mira did not argue. She sprinkled the herb powder into the fire, and the smoke turned pale blue, floating like mist. You saw its eyes, she said. Did they look like the eyes of a beast without thought? Tom frowned. He remembered the glowing stare across the flames, sharp and focused. It had not been the mindless glare of hunger. It had been study, almost like judgment. It was watching us, like we were the test, exactly. Mira sat across from him, folding her legs. It wanted to see what kind of beings we are. It already knows humans fight. It already knows humans fear. But it has not seen humans share. Tom rubbed the back of his neck. And you think tossing it food was sharing? It was the first step, Mira said. Tom shook his head, though he could not dismiss the memory of the predator eating the dry meat. Instead of charging at them, he hated to admit it. But Mira's way had worked. The rest of the day passed. In uneasy quiet, they walked to the river, filled their water skins, and returned to camp. Every sound of cracking branches made Tom tense, but nothing showed itself. Mira, however, moved as if nothing had changed, her steps light, her gaze always forward. That night, as the fire burned high again, Tom's fear returned. He did not need Mira to tell him the predator would come back. He felt it in his chest. He felt the forest waiting. The strings rattled. The heavy steps came. And then, like before, the predator stepped into the fire. Tom gripped his spear. But Mira only smiled faintly. You see, she said softly, it returns because it is curious, not because it is hungry. The predator circled again, its eyes glowing. It stopped close to the fire, breathing slow and deep. Tom whispered, "What do we do now?" Mira reached into the pot of stew Tom had been cooking. She scooped out a chunk of root and meat with her knife, then tossed it toward the predator. The food landed near its claws. Tom nearly shouted at her, "Are you insane? That was our dinner." But the predator lowered its head and sniffed. It opened its jaws and swallowed the piece whole. Then it huffed, a low sound, and sat down again, almost in the same place as the night before. Mira leaned back against the rock. You see, it does not come for blood. It comes for food and for watching. Tom tried to calm his breathing. So what happens when we run out of food? What if it decides we taste better than roots and meat? Mira tilted her head toward the beast. If it only wanted to eat us, it would have done so already. Do not give it the heart of a thief, give it the heart of a guest. Tom stared at her, baffled. A guest? That thing is the size of 3 men and has claws like knives. Guests don't come with claws. Mira chuckled softly. In the wild zone, every guest has claws. What matters is whether they stay sheathed. The predator stayed until dawn again. It did not attack. It did not leave quickly either. It watched, sometimes shifting its head, sometimes digging claws into the dirt. Tom could not shake the feeling that it was listening, though no words passed between them. When the sun rose, it left. Just like before, Tom slumped by the fire. His eyes were heavy from no sleep. This cannot go on. We are feeding it, keeping it near. One day, one day it will change its mind. But Mira shook her head. One day, Tom, it may guard us instead. Her words stayed with him all morning. Guard them? How could a predator guard? Yet he remembered the way it sat by the fire, close but not attacking, almost like a silent watcher. Later that day, while Mira gathered roots near the river, Tom walked a short distance from the camp. He found new prints in the soil. They were from the predator, but these ones were different. The claws had not dug as deep, as if the steps were lighter. Tom touched the prints, wondering if Mira was right, if the creature was not stalking but pacing, not hunting but circling with purpose. That night, the predator returned a third time. Tom felt his chest tighten when he heard the rattling stones. The shape appeared again, larger than life, glowing eyes fixed on them. Mira tossed another piece of food. This time, the predator did not eat it right away. Instead, it stepped forward, closer to the fire, closer to them. Tom's breath caught. Mira, it's coming too close. But Mira held up her hand, steady as stone. Stay. The predator lowered its head, sniffed at the fire, then sat only a few steps away. Tom could see its scales glinting in the flame, see the scars along its jaw, see the deep chest rising and falling with each breath. His instinct screamed to run or fight. But Mira leaned slightly forward and spoke in a clear voice. You are not our enemy. The predator blinked slowly, as if the firelight reflected something in its mind. It gave a short growl, but not a threat. Tom whispered, You really believe it understands? Mira nodded. Yes, maybe not our words, but it understands the meaning. It understands choice. Tom stared at the beast. He wanted to deny it, but in that moment he felt something stir in his chest. The predator was not just an animal. There was thought in its gaze, maybe even judgment. The night passed with the predator sitting near, closer than ever before, almost inside their circle of firelight. It did not move until the first sign of dawn. Then it stood, gave another deep growl that shook the air, and walked back into the forest. Tom rubbed his tired eyes. This is not normal. Beasts don't do this. Mira smiled. That is because it is not only beast, it is something more. And it has chosen to know us. Tom sat in silence, staring at the empty edge of the forest where the creature had vanished for the first time. He felt less like prey and more like part of something bigger. The days in the wild zone began to follow a strange rhythm. Tom would wake to the sound of Mira humming while tending the fire. They would walk to the river, gather roots, hunt for small game, and then return to their camp before nightfall. And always, as the darkness deepened, the predator returned. At first, Tom thought the visits would end after a few nights, but the creature came again and again. Sometimes it sat in the shadows, sometimes it moved closer, but it never attacked. Instead, it seemed to study them, silent and patient. One morning, Tom noticed something new. Near the fire pit, just beyond the circle of rocks, lay a small pile of shiny stones. They were smooth and colored in shades of green and silver. He stared at them in surprise. Mira, he called, pointing. Did you put these here? She walked over, crouched, and picked up one of the stones, her golden eyes lit with recognition. No, these are not from me. These are from the predator. Tom's eyes widened. You're saying it brought us a gift? Yes, Mira said simply. It shows respect, A bond begins. Tom rubbed the back of his neck. A bond with claws and teeth. That's hard for me to accept. Mira dropped the stone back onto the pile. You must learn to see the forest as more than hunger and fear. Bonds are made here in ways you do not expect. That evening, the predator returned again. This time, it carried something in its jaws. It dropped a heavy bone near the firelight. The bone was cracked and clean, as though stripped by the predator itself. Tom stepped back instantly, ready to grab his spear. Mira, however, walked forward with no fear. She bent and touched the bone, nodding as if receiving a message. Another gift, she said. It offers us what it values. Tom muttered under his breath, I wish it valued leaving us alone. Mira only smiled. That night, Tom did not sleep much. His mind twisted between fear and wonder. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw the glowing gaze of the predator watching from the dark. Yet each time he looked closer in his memory, he saw no rage there, only something sharp and thinking. The next day, while Mira searched for herbs, Tom stayed near camp, sharpening stakes. The forest was quiet until the air shifted suddenly. The sound of rustling grew louder and sharper. Not like one heavy creature, but many small ones moving at once. Tom straightened. A strangeness filled the air. Then from the undergrowth, dark shapes scuttled forward. They were smaller than the predator, but no less frightening. Their bodies were low to the ground, with many legs and stingers curling over their backs. Mira. Tom shouted. We have trouble. She came running, carrying a bundle of roots. Her eyes widened when she saw the swarm. Venom crawlers. She said quickly, Stay back. Their sting can kill in moments. Tom raised his spear as the first crawler skittered close. He thrust hard, piercing its shell. The creature shrieked and twisted, spilling dark fluid on the dirt. But more came. 10, 20, crawling over each other, their stingers striking at the air. Mira grabbed burning sticks from the fire and swung them, driving some back. They fear flame. She called. Tom fought to hold the line, but there were too many. His arms grew heavy, his breath sharp. He thought the swarm would overwhelm them when a sudden roar split the night. The ground shook as the predator burst from the trees. Its massive jaws opened wide, snapping down on 3 crawlers at once. With a single sweep of its claws, it crushed another group, tossing their broken shells aside. Tom froze in shock. It's fighting them. Mira's voice rang out firm and proud. I told you, it has chosen. The predator tore through the swarm with raw strength. Crawlers struck its scales, stingers clashing against hard ridges. But the thick armor of its body protected it. Its roars filled the clearing, shaking the air, until the swarm scattered. Fleeing back into the forest, silence followed, broken only by the hiss of the fire and Tom's ragged breathing. He leaned on his spear, staring at the predator. Its claws dripped with dark venom, but it showed no sign of harm. The beast lowered its head toward Mira, then gave a low huff, almost like a sigh. Mira stepped forward, her golden eyes steady. You guarded us, she said softly. You have proven yourself. Tom's chest tightened with wonder. The predator had not only spared them, it had saved them. The fear that had chained his heart since their first meeting began to loosen. He looked at Mira. Maybe you were right. Maybe it is not just a beast. She smiled, the firelight glowing in her eyes. It never was. That night, the predator stayed close to their camp, lying near the fire as if it were part of the circle. Its breathing was slow and steady. Wall of strength between them and the forest. Tom sat watching it, unable to believe the change. Days ago, he had been ready to run at the sight of it. Now it was their shield. When dawn came, the predator rose, stretched its massive body, and walked back into the trees without a sound. Tom let out a long breath. I never thought I'd see the day when a monster would save my life. Mira placed her hand on his shoulder. It is no monster, Tom. It is our ally now. Bonds are not made in words alone. They are made in fire, food, and in battles shared. Tom looked at the path where the predator had gone. For the first time, he did not feel like prey in the wild zone. He felt like part of something larger. A strange alliance born in fear but strengthened in trust. The morning sun rose through the misty forest, turning leaves into streaks of gold and green. Tom stretched, still stiff from the previous night's fight. His mind replayed the predator's attack on the venom crawlers, every detail of its strength and precision stayed in his memory. He had fought, yes, but it had saved them. And that truth made his heart pound with something new. Trust. Mira moved beside him, gathering water from the nearby stream. Her golden eyes caught the sunlight as she smiled faintly. It is a rare thing, she said softly, to turn an enemy into a protector. Tom frowned. You make it sound easy. But last night, it could have killed us both. Mira shook her head. Not easy, but possible. Those who know the wild zone and those who know life understand respect. Not all power comes from claws. Some power comes from choice. Tom followed her to the stream. Choice? He asked. Yes, she said, dipping her hands into the cold water. The predator chose to protect us. That is the greatest strength, even stronger than fighting. Tom thought of the way the predator had stood before the swarm, muscles tense, jaws ready, yet it had not struck at them. It had waited for Mira's signal, for the moment of understanding. So it understands. Commands. Mira shook her head. Not commands, signals, understanding. It knows danger, yes, but it also knows respect. It tests, it watches, it chooses. That is how life works here. Tom nodded slowly. He wanted to believe her, but part of him still felt the tension of the forest, the unpredictability of every step. And if it chooses wrong? Mira looked at him with a calm smile. Then we learn. But it has chosen well, and it will continue to do so if we honor it. Fear is the only mistake humans make here. Later that day, the predator returned as expected. Tom no longer reached for his spear immediately. Instead, he watched as it stepped into the firelight, massive and silent. Its golden eyes met Mira's, and she stood, tossing a piece of dry meat toward it. The predator lowered its head and ate, then sat back on its haunches, watching the camp. Tom realized he was holding his breath without noticing. He had stopped thinking of it as a threat and started thinking of it as something else, an ally. Mira noticed his change. See, she said quietly, you already trust it more than you realize. That is how bonds are built slowly, through acts, through survival, through sharing the same nights and fears. Tom's lips curved into a small smile. I never thought I'd see the day when I'd feed a predator and call it a friend. Mira laughed softly. It is not a predator when it chooses friendship. Here, in this world, even the strongest can be gentle if approached correctly. Night came. Again, the forest was alive with sounds, but Tom felt a strange calm as he looked around the camp. The stakes and strings no longer seemed like protection against a monster, but a stage for understanding. As expected, the predator came, circling the camp slowly. Tom noticed a shift in its behavior. It seemed less tense, more comfortable in their presence. When Mira offered food, it approached without hesitation. It even sniffed at Tom, testing him, and then sat nearby, close enough that Tom could feel its heat. This is different, Tom whispered. It's relaxed. Mira nodded. Yes, it knows we are no threat, and we know it is no threat. That is the start of harmony. Tom studied the massive creature, amazed at how much he had learned in a few days. Its scales glinted in the firelight, scars telling stories of past battles, eyes reflecting intelligence beyond instinct. He reached out slowly, unsure if the movement would frighten it. Mira touched his arm gently. Go ahead. It will not harm you, but move with respect, not command. Tom extended a hand. The predator sniffed it carefully. Then, surprisingly, it leaned forward and nuzzled his palm with its broad snout. Tom froze, his heart pounding, then slowly relaxed as warmth spread through him. Mira smiled faintly. See, trust is possible even here. Tom looked at her, eyes wide with wonder. I never imagined this. I thought I'd always fear it. She crouched beside him. Fear is natural, but it can be taught to transform. Humans have the rare ability to turn enemies into allies. So do some of my kind. It is the gift of choice and understanding. That is why we survive here, not just by strength, but by respect. Tom's Mine swirled with the truth in her words. The predator was proof. Strength alone did not rule this forest. Understanding and respect did. That night, the predator stayed close, almost like a guardian. Tom and Mira ate quietly by the fire, watching. The eyes in the shadows. They felt a presence that was no longer threatening. Then, Mira reached for Tom's hand. "Do you see it?" she asked. "We are part of something larger now. Not just humans. Not just predators, but life in balance." Tom nodded, still staring. At the glowing eyes of the predator. "I see it. I never thought I could." The predator gave a low, rumbling huff. It did not move closer, but it did not leave either. Tom realized that it had accepted them, and in return, they accepted it. Mira looked at him, her golden eyes reflecting the fire. "Tomorrow, we move closer to the old station. But remember, wherever we go, the bond stays. Fear will not guide. U.S. understanding will." Tom squeezed her hand, feeling courage he had never known. "I trust you," he said quietly, "and I think I trust it too." Mira smiled, her calm confidence spreading to him. "That is the first step. All else follows." The night deepened, fire crackling, predator watching, and the two humans sat quietly. Tom thought about the strange path that had brought them here, from fear to understanding, from terror to trust. He realized that in the wild zone, survival was not just about claws, teeth, or weapons. Survival was about knowing, seeing, and sometimes laughing together. And with Mira by his side, he felt ready to face whatever else the forest might send. The forest was alive with morning light as Tom and Mira packed their camp. The predator waited at the edge of the clearing, massive and silent, its glowing eyes tracking their every movement. Tom had long stopped fearing it. Now, he felt a strange pride, a bond that had grown stronger with every night they had survived together. Mira slung her pack over her shoulder. "Today, we reached the old station," she said. "It is not far, but the path is dangerous. You must stay close." Tom nodded, glancing at the predator. It huffed low, as if acknowledging its role. The three of them moved carefully through the forest, steps measured, ears listening. The predator walked beside them, silent but protective. The trees began to thin as they reached the clearing. Broken metal beams and rusted panels rose from the ground. The old station had not seen life in decades, but it still held signs of past activity. Dirt-covered instruments, shattered glass, and strange symbols on the walls. Mira led the way. "We must search quickly. There may be supplies, but we must be careful. The zone can hide more than predators." Tom's eyes scanned the area. He felt a mix of curiosity and tension. This place was older than anything he had seen, and though the predator stayed close, he could not shake the feeling that danger lingered beyond the metal ruins. As they moved inside, the predator sniffed and padded quietly behind them. Its presence reassured Tom. They searched through rooms, finding old equipment and food stores. Some of the items were spoiled, but others were still usable. Mira picked up a small container and opened it. Inside were dried roots and packaged food. She smiled. "This will last us several days. We can rest here safely tonight." Tom's stomach eased. Finally, some comfort. Suddenly, a loud screech echoed from above. Dust fell from the ceiling. Shadows moved. Tom froze. The predator tensed immediately, ears flicking, claws scraping the ground. "More crawlers," Mira whispered. "They may have found the station before us. Be ready." Tom raised his spear, heart racing. The screeching grew louder, and a group of venom crawlers dropped from the ceiling beams. Their stingers raised. The predator leaped forward without hesitation. Its massive body struck the first crawler, crushing it under its claws. Others tried to scatter, but it moved with surprising speed for its size. Snapping jaws and swiping claws with precision, Tom felt a surge of relief and amazement. He followed Mira's lead, striking at any crawlers that came too close. While the predator tore through the swarm, within moments, the room was cleared. Dust settling as the predator let out a low huff of triumph. Tom stared at it, still catching his breath. "It saved us again. I can't believe how fast it moved." Mira smiled softly. "It is strong, but it also trusts us. that makes it part of our team. Strength alone cannot win battles. Trust does. After the attack, the predator remained at the entrance of the room, standing guard while Tom and Mira examined the station. They found a small control panel, partially functional, flickering with faint lights. Mira pressed a few buttons, and a low hum filled the room. "This station can help us," she explained. "We can call for supplies or scan the area for safe routes. It will make our journey easier." Tom nodded, feeling a sense of hope he had not known since entering the wild zone. "And we have the predator with us. We are not alone." Mira crouched beside him, brushing dust off the control panel. "We never were alone. Life itself walks with us, even in the wild zone. Sometimes it comes in forms we do not expect." Tom glanced at the predator, which tilted its head, as if understanding every word. He smiled faintly. "I guess laughter, food, and patience really do work." Mira laughed softly. "Yes, and courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to face it. You have learned that well, Tom." The day passed quietly. Tom and Mira organized the supplies, prepared a small area for rest, and kept the fire burning in the open courtyard. The predator patrolled the perimeter, never leaving, always watching. Tom realized he had not felt this safe in the forest since they arrived. Night fell again. The forest round the station seemed quieter, as if it knew the predator was guarding them. Tom sat beside Mira, both of them staring at the firelight. "It's strange," Tom said. "I used to think every step here could be the last. Now, I feel different." Mira placed her hand on his. "You see the forest with new eyes. You see life as connection, not just survival. That is why the predator trusts you. That is why we survive." Suddenly, the predator stepped closer, brushing against Tom's leg gently. Tom looked down, surprised. The creature lowered its massive head to his hand, nuzzling him as if to say it had accepted him fully. Tom laughed softly, shaking his head. "I never thought I would pet a predator like a pet." Mira smiled. "Not a pet, an ally. A friend earned through respect, patience, and understanding. That is the difference." Tom stroked the predator's scales, feeling the smooth texture under his fingers. The bond he had feared could never exist had formed. They were no longer strangers in a wild zone. They were a team, human, alien, and predator. The night passed without interruption. For the first time, Tom slept deeply, feeling protected by both Mira and the predator. The forest hummed around them, alive but no longer threatening. When morning came, Tom awoke to find the predator lying near the fire, its eyes half closed, relaxed. Mira was already tending the fire, smiling as she looked at him. "Ready for the next step?" she asked. Tom nodded, feeling a sense of confidence he had never felt before. "Yes, we can face anything now." Mira extended her hand, and Tom took it. The predator rose to its full height beside them, a silent guardian. Together, they stepped forward from the station, moving into the forest with purpose and courage. The wild zone still held dangers, but Tom knew now that fear was not the only answer. With trust, laughter, patience, and courage, even the most dangerous creature could become a friend. The predator walked beside them, golden eyes glowing softly. Tom looked at Mira, smiling. "You were right. Strength alone is nothing. Trust matters more." Mira laughed softly. "And now you know the greatest secret of the wild zone. It is not survival of the fittest. It is survival of those who understand." Life at Tom nodded. The forest stretched before them, full of unknown paths. But he no longer feared it. With Mira and the predator at his side, he was ready for any challenge. Together, they moved forward. A strange but powerful team, united by trust, courage, and the bond they had earned in the heart of the wild zone. The predator had once been a threat, but now it was a protector, a friend, and a reminder that even the fiercest wild can be tamed with understanding. And in the golden light of morning, Tom realized that this journey had changed him forever. He had faced fear, learned to trust, and found an ally in the most unexpected form. The wild zone stretched endlessly ahead, but for the first time, Tom felt that he was not alone, and that was more powerful than any weapon.